And we're back with some more Factorio Space Age. And today it's time to take our starter ship and maybe turn it into something. Actually, no, not turn this in. We want to design a new ship to act as a cargo hauler. We have science that comes from Gleba, and we want that hauled back to Navis, and we don't want to have to, well, use our main ship to do it. So we want to redesign, make a cargo ship, and at the same time redesign this ship to be better as our personal transport, let's just say, and colonization ship. Colonization ship, that's it. So, onto our test map and the creative mod so we can design a ship really quickly, hopefully. This is where we designed our previous little ship, so now all we have to do is add on another platform. I think cargo test 1 should be perfectly fine. Alright, cargo test 1. Now, first things first, when it comes to gun turrets, we're going to direct feed them straight from the Space Hub platform. On the previous design, we were feeding them off a transport belt, and yeah, let's just say this transport belt was not able to keep up with the ammo requirements when the ship was in motion. So it's either slow down the ship or increase ammo throughput. So I'm thinking bulk inserters, they will feed the turrets, and then the turrets will feed outwards to the surrounding guns. And we'll probably double layer the guns, or, you know what, we'll worry about that later. One thing I also want to see, can we get this to go from one side? Yes, we can. Okay, that's actually interesting. Thing is, we want to make this ship as narrow as possible. So, in theory, the narrowest we could make it is that. That would be interesting if we could make it work. Okay, we would still need some way to collect resources from the front of the ship. That looks a little bit more interesting. We've turned these sideways. We can make level 3 rare asteroid collectors, so we might as well enjoy them. So if we tried to use regular asteroid collectors, I don't think we'd have as much reach on them. Yeah, that might be a little bit trickier. I could theoretically do it, but I prefer to use our rare ones. Yeah, and for gun turrets, we've basically got 2 stack inserters feeding into 1 gun turret, which then feeds into 2 more gun turrets and then 2 more. So we've got, actually, what am I doing? 6 gun turrets, straight in a row. Perfect. And this leaves us space here for the outputs on these. Yeah. We can have them output onto these, and then we can have the transport belt go under the ship. Something along those lines. And then we need to put the production at the rear. We're also going to need some additional cargo storage. So this next bit, not entirely necessary, but I wanted to see if it would work, and that is basically extending on the cargo bays. What I was thinking of is we can basically chuck on 2 cargo bays like that, vastly increase the cargo storage capacity of the transport ship, and at the same time, yeah, we can now hop across with the blue belt. So there's ways to get resources from one end of the ship to the other. Now, I don't think we actually need these, but I want to include them in the original design just in case. We can always shorten it up. This middle bit here, oh, actually for this middle bit here, we might want to put in a gun. Nope, that won't work. We'd need to put a gun in the middle to actually cover that area. And we'd probably need space for these things. Tricksy. You know what? No. We're going to abandon making it extremely long. Otherwise, we're going to have to start rotating ammo around. In fact, we're probably going to have to put guns close to here as well to cover the end of the ship. Which means if we put, say, a gun right there to be a tail gunner, we can't really make the ship much larger than up to about here. So we need to put in fuel production, ammo production, all that stuff, and solar, all back here somewhere. So, this is the very much messed up version of it. We're just getting started, figuring out where things go, getting a feel for things. This is where the ice goes. Ice gets converted. Actually, we're going to use the more advanced recipe for ice smashing. Wait, actually no, that's the wrong thing. We still gotta actually put on the... There it is, the crushers. So we'll need to put in 3 crushers as well, but... Presumption is we get crushers on here somewhere. The crushers are going to put resources onto the belts. So the ice gets gathered in here, turns ice into water. Water gets pumped out here and fed into these 2 machines. These 2 machines are going to take carbon, calcite, and water to make fuel, and iron, calcite, and water to make thruster oxidizer. So with oxidizer and fuel, that would feed into the engines. This whole thing is going to have to be moved further back down the ship. But yeah, I want to make this like as pencil thin as possible. At this point, it's actually probably a bad idea, but you know what? I like it this way. First thing we're going to do is we're going to need to make ammo. And sort of squeezing it in on this tiny platform is a little bit tricky. But I figured we just do direct insertion. We grab ourselves an electric furnace, and then we just insert the output of that directly into ammo production. I think it'll work at about 15 rounds of 15 mags per minute, which should hopefully be enough. We'll have to do some testing to be sure, but we'll give that a roll and see. Problem is, I was trying to figure out how do we squeeze in stuff into this space, and I've come up with a dumb idea. Okay, bear with me here. So we need iron ore. We also need carbon asteroids, and what we need to do is get these, fill them up, and output them. So I thought, how about long arm inserters pick up from over here? We're going to have the asteroids rolling around the outside belt, so they'll pick it up from the rotating belt going around. So those two should get filled that way, and then they output their contents over here. 1 second. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. We're going to put in a transport belt, and we're going to say output priority right. Yeah, there we go. So this one can output its contents onto this belt. This one can output its content onto this belt, and that should all rotate round and round. Kind of fits, and it's you know, it's compact, but it kind of works. Actually, we can stick in a second furnace right here. And now we have 2 furnaces feeding that machine. That would drastically increase ammo production. And it's all still nice and compact. We still have to put in the ice thing here. Yeah, so that has to convert the ice to whatever bits and bobs. But yeah, that's actually not too bad. Well, that got messy. That got messy fast. Can you see all these cables around the place? Yeah, that's me fiddling around with stuff. It's just... Okay. Let me try and explain this in ways that are hopefully not too horrifying. First up, this transport belt that goes all the way around the ship. This is what you refer to as a sushi belt. It's just got a bunch of random junk on it. Well, it's not random. We've actually decided what goes on there in a way, using a lot of random circuit logic-y stuff. But the first and most important thing is, how do we make sure we don't sweep up too much junk flying around the place? Like, look at that. That metallic asteroid's going by, and these guys are like, no, I'm not hungry. No, thank you, sir. I have already eaten. And that is all to do with circuit logic. All right, first up, let me try and do a few things here. So this is a normal asteroid connector in its natural habitat. It's a street sweeper. It hoovers up everything that goes by. Now, what we could do is we could filter this and say, hey, only collect oxide. We got everything else we need, we just want oxide. But then you have to manually do it and figure out how much of each you've gotten. No. What we could do as well is we could use a constant combinator. And constant combinators, you can set values on them. So we could say to this one, hey, we would like to only collect, oxide chunks. 1 second. We would like to only collect oxide chunks. So we hook it up to this constant combinator, set this to oxide asteroid chunks. And then we say, hey, set filters. Set the filters based on signals from the circuit network. So this thing will read the circuit network and set its filters from that. And the thing is, it has detected that we have set up oxide. But just say you put in something dumb like steel. Hey, also collect steel. Won't do it. This thing only has 3 things it can collect, so if you try and set the filters to anything else, it's just going to ignore it. The only thing it looks for is oxide, metal, and ice. They're the only 3 it's going to actually care about. So, that's what we do. And done. Now it's collecting all 3 of them, which helps us not in the slightest. So what we have to do is say, we want to check how much asteroid stuff is on her, or how many of each type of oxide or whatever asteroid we've got going around the place. And then once we've figured out how many of them we have, we tell this thing, okay, we've got enough, stop sending that signal. And that's where decider combinators come in. All right, so if you look over here, okay, this is going to look terrifying, but okay, this here, input side on the left, output side on the right. Currently we've set it to, we want you to check each thing on this side, check if it's less than 25. If this thing is less than 25, we want you to output each thing on the right-hand side. So output it as a signal. So for example, there's 24 calcite currently. Since there's only 24 calcite, it outputs that on the opposite side. However, there's 28 carbonic asteroid chunks. So it stops outputting that on the opposite side. And you notice, yeah, everything's going along just fine and dandy. And once if something goes above 25, it stops getting output at the other end. And done. But that's not perfect. You see, where is it? There is... Nope. I think it's happened, has it? Yes, you'll notice there's no oxide asteroid chunks. It's not over here on the left, and it's not over here on the right. We're not collecting anything anymore. We've stopped collecting, and we still need those oxide ones. So what happened? Well, there has to be an input first. That's why we have this constant combinator here. And 1 second, just going to break that. By putting the constant combinator on here, We always make sure the value in here is equal to 1 for the 3 things we actually care about. Otherwise, this can have problems where we run out of one thing and it stops collecting it and the whole system breaks down. So this thing here is basically to say, always look for these 3, even if they're not on the belt, just keep an eye out for them, okay. That means we're probably only holding 24 of each item on the belt, but we don't really care. There also might be a little bit of over-collection now and then. It's just a way to do with how things are processed. But that doesn't matter. All of this stuff gets output here by these bulk inserters, so it dumps them onto the line. Bulk inserters are actually of waste. We should probably switch those out for regular inserters, just because they draw less power. You know what? Doesn't make a difference. So all of these come down here, and then they go all the way around, and on the way back up here, this thing here grabs what this thing wants, which is metallic asteroids. The metallic asteroids get smashed in here, they get ground up into iron ore, and you notice it's blocked up. The reason for that is this bulk inserter. This bulk inserter, oh, damn it, I should point something out here, I missed a bit. Apologies, it's just there's a lot going on, and this took me a while, and a couple of tutorials. This is a circuit detector thing. We've basically hooked up a red circuit to the belt. In fact, anywhere you hook up a circuit to the belt, like say, yoink, it just gives you one of these thingies. And this thing has a bunch of options on it. One is to read the belt contents, and pulse means only read it as it passes through. So if we were to set that to, say, iron ore, it's going to read the belt and it will pulse anytime it detects iron ore passing through. Here, oh, 1. Or we can do hold. Basically, it holds the value. So long as anything is inside there and stays there, the value will remain constant. Otherwise, it just gives a quick pulse the moment it passes through. Then we've got hold all belt contents, which checks the entire belt. So it reads everything in a contiguous belt, not separate belts though. So it's got to be all one belt, which is why this thing goes around in circles. Anyway, now we can get rid of that. Okay, and these red wires and green wires, this is basically you have red wires and green wires, so you can have 2 separate circuit networks. And my voice is getting hoarse from all of the talking about it, just explaining circuit networks already. Apologies. Okay. All we've done is set up the outputs on these that, hey, if you detect that there is more than 60 or 50 iron ore on the belt, stop outputting. Same with the oxide, and somehow we still have 136. Don't ask me how. Then same thing with the ice, though we will come back to this one. Anyway, the most important bit here is the iron comes out, it passes by here, and it gets dumped into this furnace. And it also gets dumped into this furnace over here, and both of those furnaces feed into the firearms magazine, and the firearms magazine is then, via this inserter, dumped into, well, the only storage you can have, which is this thing here. And it says, hey, if there's 300, stop. That's it. So that way we prevent too much ammunition being produced or basically burning through all of the iron ore or filling up our storage. And then they're dumped into the weapons up front. Now, there are a few turrets back here. So there's one turret here and here. This is just to make sure, where is it? There. That the whole thing is covered. So whenever we're inside a system that has asteroids that can damage the ship, there's something to cover it. And you don't really need that much as far as I can tell. One gun is usually enough because they don't come in at high speeds when you're stationary. And for the high speeds ones, you really only have to worry about the ones from the front, which is why we have 6 guns up there. This inserter over here checks the belt and goes, hey, have 50 rounds of mags just floating around in that belt. That way, these guns, which are here, can have some ammunition inside them, and they feed off the belt via that red inserter there, and this one feeds off the belt via that green inserter there. And done. That gives us the protection we need to hopefully stay safe. Oh, I haven't even hooked these up yet. That's, yeah, I'm not going to care about that right now. Okay. So that was stage 1. That was a little bit painful, but stage 2 got slightly less and more painful simultaneously. Yeah. When it comes to engines, there's an efficiency thing, as in if you meter out the amount of fuel that goes into it and keep it below maximum fuel amount, it actually is more efficient, which is a good thing. This here is the wiki for Factorio, and this here is the thruster section. And this data sheet here is basically efficiency to the amount of fluid you put into it. So, for example, if you put in 100% fuel and fill the fuel reserves up to maximum, the efficiency of which you burn it will be 51%. The only way you get 100% efficiency of the fuel is if you put in 10%. It also gives you relative thrust and relative fuel consumption. So relative thrust is basically how much thrust you're getting out of the engine, and the maximum amount you can get is 100%, so 55% or 75% fuel in the reserves of the engine itself will give you the most thrust. we don't really care about the thrust so much. The ship going back and forth really fast doesn't matter. We're carrying back 1,000 science every so often. It's not a huge deal. So what we want to aim for is about here. You could pick anywhere on this list, but what I want to aim for is about 25%. That gives us 90% efficiency, which means we should burn very little ice, which is good because we have no way of making more of it. We're just hunting it from asteroids, which is a crapshoot. Then we've got relative thrust is 44%, which should be fine. Relative fluid consumption is 51%. Yeah. But we use quality level 3 engines. So the way to think of it is we need to feed 50 fluid per second in both fuel and oxidizer to the engine. And if we can feed 50 of each into the engine, then it will work at this efficiency rating, which we have to then figure out how to do. And that leads us to pumps. Now, pumps have a pump speed of 1,200 fluid per second. And what we want is 50 fluid per second, which means we want this thing to come on for 1 second out of every 24. So 1 out of every 24 seconds should give us the required amount. That's going to be tricky. So the first thing we want to do is come up with a clock. That's actually not that bad. We just want to have a clock that counts to 24 seconds, and then we can have this thing turn on once every 24 seconds to just give us a little bit of fuel. It'll be a little bit it'll be a spurt of thrust and then a stop, but we should be able to make it work. Now, because it'd be too easy to just include like some sort of clock device that you could just plug in, you instead have to sort of hack one together from decider combinators. Yeah, okay, let's start at the beginning. So first up, we want this thing to have some sort of symbol. The one I've chosen on is fuel because, well, that seems like the logical choice here. If the fuel, since this thing has to activate once every 24 seconds, we want to set this to 24. What we want you to do is count to 24, go back to start. That's it. So what this is going to do is, so long as you're less than 24 fuel, you're going to output that signal. And then once you're more than 24 fuel, you're going to go back to the beginning. Sorry, explaining this is nightmarish in a lot of respects. Then we're going to get 2 more fuel symbols over here. And these 2 are going to be different. One is an input count and one is a set count of 1. When we put this to an output count of 1, that means it always outputs 1 fuel. This thing will always output 1 fuel. Cool. Then what we do is we set it to input count plus. So it basically counts up the input and adds it to whatever's there. So whatever's going in here will get added to what we currently have and output out the other side. And then what we do is we just get the output of this, which is on this side, and we hook it up to the input. Oopsie. And then it does this stupid thing. If you don't get it, that's fine. I had to go through this like a few times myself just to wrap my noggin around it. But effectively what you're doing here is just telling it, hey, count up what's coming out. And then keep doing that until you hit 24. And when you do, stop for a second. And then it just keeps flicking all the way up to 24 and counting round and round. And the only reason we're doing this is because we want to make sure that once every 24 ticks, something happens. And that allows us to do something stupid. Like, say, put one of these over here. Hook it up to the liquid pump. And tell the liquid pump, hey, once fuel's at 1, activate. In fact, let's just make a difference. It doesn't even matter what number we set this to. As long as it's between 1 and 24, we can set this to, say, 10. So, once every 10, activate. And that means both of those will activate when this thing is at 10. It's going to hit 10 once every 24, so boom, we've done what we wanted to do. Then comes the next part. Okay. You see, when the ship gets to its destination, this will still keep doing its count, and the little fuel bar in the bottom of this thruster, which if I can scroll down to it, there should be a fuel bar here. Actually, there's no fuel bar because there's nothing in it. Then it will keep filling this up, 1/24th at a time, but it will still slowly fill up this engine. That would be bad. We want to make sure that this only turns on when the ship is moving, and then it turns off when the ship stops. And that's, well, it. So, to do that, well, we've hooked it all the way back up here through this weird green thing, all the way back to the core. And the core has these 2 things it's got. Read moving from and read moving to. Read moving from means sends the location at the beginning of the space connection which platform is traveling along. And reads moving to said, you know what, let's just demonstrate. So this here is our original ship, and here we can test one of the signals you get. Namely, read moving from and read moving to. What this means is, if you're at a location, or if you're leaving a location, you get +1 for that location. So right now, we're at Navis. And since we're at Navis, and we have the box tipped, read moving from, we have +1 added to Navis. Because we are at Navis, so that gets a +1. If we were leaving Navis and going to Glebe, This would still be +1 because we have left Navis, and that Navis still counts as a 1. However, read moving to is where things get interesting. This sends the location of where you're moving to. And the thing is, when you're stopped, technically you're still moving to that location because you've moved to it. So what happens is, if you're on a planet, you get +2 for being on that planet. And you get +1 if you've done this one as well. So you should actually have +3 so long as you're stationary around a planet. Which means Navis should have +3 on it. Which it does. If we hook it up here, we can see that Navis has 3. Now, if we start moving towards Navis, it'd be 2. If we were moving away from Navis, it's 1. And if we're at Navis, it's 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fly to Gleba. Right now, Gleba is 0. But the moment we start moving to Gleba, Gleba will become 2. And then when we get to Gleba, Gleba should turn to 3. While we're moving away from Navis, that should, in theory, drop to 1. And by the time once we get to Glebe, this will drop to 0. And of course, Navis will go to 0 and Glebe will go to 3. This is just a way to tell when you're going somewhere. So for example, we'll just hit this now. Right now, Navis has got a 3 number. We just hit this. And boom, Navis has dropped to 1. And Glebe has gone up to 2 because we're heading there. And that's all because we ticked these 2 boxes. So this way, we're able to tell when a ship is moving. Now, there's a couple of ways to tell, but the easiest one, we're going to be doing a back and forth from Navis. So I figure we just put in a circuit condition that says, if it's at 1 or 2, then we're moving, because that means we're either moving to or from Navis. If it's 3, we're stopped. So we just have to mean anything of 1 and 2, turn on the engine, or turn on the fluid. And we're almost to Glebe, 1 second. And as we arrive at Glebe, Navis should go to 0, and Glebe has now gone up to 3. Done. So now we know where the signals will be when we're moving. So, with all of that circuit eye bleeding, apologies for all of that, what we end up with here is a string of cable going all the way over to here. It feeds into this decider thingy and says, hey, remember that clock thing we've got? Well, the clock thing has to work, but at the same time, either Navis has to be 1 or 2. If Navis is equal to 1, this whole thing will cycle. If Navis is equal to 2, this whole thing will cycle. That's the theory. It should work. However, we can't start because there's literally 0 fuel in the engine. There has to be some fuel in the thrusters, so we'll have to do a little jiggle there. This is decided to go... Yeah, you're going to be going to Glebe. First, let's fuel up the engines a little bit. That should just be a case of setting one of these to... Yep, we set that to an R. And now we actually have... Yeah, a tiny little bit of fuel in the thrusters. That should be enough to start this trip. Alright, let's give it a go and see how our cargo vessel works. You, begin. Is it started? Yes? How's the fuel looking? Yeah, we can't look at it while it's moving. Okay, thruster speed is very low. Fuel consumption, absolutely minuscule. And that's a... Our speed's 150, but we're barely sipping any fuel on this sucker. Like, normally we go through an entire tank of fuel going from one side to the other. Now, it's slower. It's much, much slower. And I don't want to double down on the engines. I think I'm kind of okay with this. And the guns are kicking in. Yeah? Everything's fine. How are we looking on this front? I had to over-collect it on the ice. I basically hooked these up, but I put them on a more simple thing where they just collect oxide. That's it. Same with this one. They only collect oxide. And then they're enabled, disabled, depending on this belt here. Oh, read belt contents. Hold all belts. Yeah, there you go. And that should be that. I think this actually works. It's much slower. But it does seem to be incredibly fuel efficient. Like, that's insanely fuel efficient. Yeah, it sort of just pops up, pops down, consumption is done, and we've arrived. Like, we're still fully fueled. That's ridiculous. Hey, what are we actually missing now? Okay, we're going to assume it gets to its location, immediately has to return home, add station, go back to Navis, and we've already started. Should have double-checked the engine to make sure it didn't fill up too much. But look at that. It's got 47, 48 fuel. That's actually exactly where we want it. Well, we wanted about 50, but that's 90% efficiency from the fuel consumption. You're basically sipping this. It all runs on one engine. It travels at 153 kilometers a second. And if you want, you just make more of them for more cargo. That seems like a very simple and easy way to do this. All right, ship's about to arrive, which means this should switch off. And means the fuel will stop flowing to the engine in about 3, 2, 1. 0? Oh no. I put it on looping. But still, look at the fuel. In fact, our biggest problem is we're going to run out of ammo. How are you looking? We're down to like 79 rounds of ammunition. I didn't think of that. Like, the ammunition's going to be more of a problem than anything else. Alright, we'll get rid of Navis out of there. Cargo test version 2. Very similar to the previous one, except, well, we now have 4 smelters in there. With 4 smelters, we can now produce twice as much ammunition, which we kind of need. Generally, we weren't able to produce enough ammunition with the last one. Now, we had to make a few changes. One, the ammunition now gets chucked onto the belt. And instead of having it that we dump 300 ammunition in here and then leave 50 on the belt, instead, this goes all the way around. And this inserter now pulls in ammunition until there's 300 in here. Then once there's 300 ammunition in the cargo area, then what happens is this thing here checks to make sure that there's an extra 50 on the belt. So once there's 50 on the belt, that stops producing. This could lead to a problem where, say, we go on a journey, we drain all the ammunition off the belt, and then this gun down here gets pressured. But all the ammunition should be flowing past this gun and past this gun before it gets back to here to get sucked up, so they should be fine. There is a possibility, I suppose, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. For now, Cargo Test 1, the original, actually doing quite well. We just stuck in an extra modifier on it where it will not leave Navis until it's got 300 ammo in storage, and that seems to have fixed the problem. Still chews through a lot of ammunition, though. So, yeah, I'm thinking having the double ammo production will make sure we won't run into any issues. This got stupidly long, but hey, we kept the skinny cigar shape, and the fuel efficiency is absolutely incredible. So, let's just wait until this thing's warmed up and send it on its journey. Oh, and I forgot one thing. We added in an extra one of these crushers. Right now we have this crusher here, which basically outputs calcite. Well, calcite and ice. However, we have this one over here that just outputs ice, meaning we get 2 more ice instead of the extra calcite. So what we're trying to do here is just make it so that we only output calcite until the calcite goes up to 20. Then it stops this machine, or it stops outputting from this machine. Then this machine will take over and it basically turns all of our oxide into ice because we need more ice than we do the calcite. At the same time, the input on this doesn't switch on until we have at least 10 calcite on the belt. Just to make sure we've got enough to, produce all the fuel we're going to need. And once all the fuel is completed, how are we looking there? 25... Yeah, you're actually all pretty well done. Though we do need a little bit more ice to back up in the system. Also, down here we have what I like to call the get rid of the excess. This basically we can switch this to whatever we want to get rid of, say, accidentally if you've made steel, maybe you've made too much of something, there's too much ended up on the belt. You can just change the thing on this and done. It will rip that off the belt until it's gone, or you can reduce it down to an appropriate number. Just say you overload on iron asteroids because you forgot to filter something down here and accidentally took on too many of them. Alright, enough testing and messing about. I think we're ready to fire this one off. You, go to Glebe. Now, won't move. Reason it won't move, there's absolutely not a speck of fuel in the tank. There needs to be a little bit of fuel in the engine, and right now that thruster has nothing in it. So, all we want to do is find the automation and change this from an and to an or, which will start to cycle the fuel, and then turn it off again. So, done. A little bit of fuel gets into the engine, and... well, nothing? Yeah, maybe we need to leave it on for a little bit more than a second. The problem was we never replaced the wire going all the way back to the core. So because of that, we were never actually detecting whether or not we were traveling to or from a planet. Oops. Oh, and before we start up, ice-wise, we have 3 pieces of oxide for making ice. So we're a little bit low on those, but I thought I'd just spin us up anyway. Now you, give us an ore. And there you can see, yep, Navis is set to 1 because we are leaving Navis. And then when we're coming back, it'll switch around again. Alright, everything is doing what it should. Engine is thrusting. At the front we have, let's see, 300 rounds of ammunition in the tank. We also have another, if we click on where's the ammunition thing. Yeah, yeah. We have another 50 ammunition on the belt. And we should... how's our ice looking? There, ice oxide levels go up rather quickly once you're moving. I think once you're moving, you don't have to worry too much about ice. We've actually got the efficiency down pat. It's more the production of ammunition that's kind of slowing us down a bit now. Whoa. Yeah, no, they got him. That was one full round trip without a stop. We'll stop now until the ammunition is fully topped up again. Okay, and we burned through about 200 rounds of ammo. 150 from in here and 50 from the belt. How's the belt looking? Actually, there's 25 on the belt. Alright, so it moves at a reasonably slow enough place that doesn't have to wander too much. Also, I like that the engine is slightly offset from the center. This is going to drive so many people nuts. Also, it reminds me a bit of the Earl King from X4, in that it has that little weird offset engine piece. Actually, that might be a good name for this design. The Earl King Jr. Oh, and fuel-wise. Yeah, like, this thing sips fuel, so you don't have to worry. We could probably actually crank up the speed, though I don't think it's necessary. It's a cargo hauler. We basically have plenty of space in here left over as well. The only thing that should take up any space is the firearm magazines, and then the rest of it is for basically just hauling science back and forth to Glebe, and probably Volcanus once we get it set up there too. I think we'll let this run in the background a bit and see how it goes. Cargo test 1 did okay. There was a bit of a mess up at the start when I didn't get on before I got this ammunition weight in. But I think the problem with this one was it does not produce the ammunition fast enough. There's not enough iron ore production. After letting this run on automatic for a while, where it just basically bounced back and forth between Navis and Gleba, we've got 18 completed trips and 0 damage. It just seems to work, which you kind of want. We could also... The thing is, we could extend this on and put in more iron smelting to maybe speed up the ammo production a bit more, because that is effectively the limiting factor here. Anything slowing us down. The fuel control is absolutely awesome sauce. This thing barely touches any fuel. In fact, we don't have to worry about fuel at all anymore. I wonder if we switch this back to the basics, would it work? You know what? No. It works fine. We're going to leave it as it is. Though I should probably come up with a more a longer design so that you could use this for... well, going long distances, as in, well, carrying more cargo. Pretty sure you could stretch this out, just put in some extra cargo modules in here and leave everything else the same, just make it a nice, longer cigar. Anyway, I was hoping to actually get this done and then implement it in-game, but that ship has sailed a while ago. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build this in-game, off-screen, and next episode we're going straight to Volcanus. Or Volcanus? Whatever. The volcanic planet, I want to head there. We'll use this one to do cargo hauling between here or between Navis and Glebe for us. In fact, I might build 2 of these off-screen, just so we have one for Volcanus when the time comes. Anyway, this was learning circuit logic. I strongly advise against it unless you want pains in your brain, because this took far too damn long. Even looking up tutorials, it was like, no, don't do this. It's not worth it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this pain, and good luck.